Expanded color gamut inks are the orange, green, blue, red, and violet inks, and they're designed to achieve colors that are not achievable out of CMYK. So, for example, an orange in CMYK is not that bright, so you can use a spot color like an orange, and that's a lot brighter. Now, a typical bright orange might be a Pantone 021 orange, so we could simulate that in the Visualis3R software. You could also mix the expanded gamma inks with other colors to expand the range. So, for example, quite often people will use a bright orange in combination with red to make that red more vibrant. What we're going to do here is show how we can simulate all the different colors for the different brand partners, and as you can see, we have lots of layers on the file. First of all, let's mask this out. We have a foil on there. Let's do this with a gold foil. Let's put on a little bit of that foil stamping so we get that kind of like embossed edge to our foil. And now we're going to switch all of these colors off so we can see the artwork file. So we've got the CMYK for the main part, and then we're going to work with one of these colors. Now at the moment we need to set these colors up. There's a warning symbol saying what color do you want to use. So we can go in there and put in a press partner. Now, for example, one of the industry standards is Ideal Alliance. That's the basic recommendation for what these inks should look like. So for this purpose of this video tutorial, we're going to use Ideal Alliance. But if you were printing something on a different device, then you would specify theirs. Now, for example, we wouldn't be using Screen, because that's like a label press. We wouldn't be using the Memaki, that's a label press as well. Lander is a digital device, so it might be something that could be done on a Lander. But we'll do all of these using the Ideal Alliance specification. So that is the orange of what the Ideal Alliance says their spot orange looks like. So we can visualize that, and we can move that around, and we have a simulation of that design. Now this design was created in Photoshop, so we have an illustration of a book cover, and we basically just added in the colors and the layers in Photoshop. Now at the moment we are only working with a flat sheet, so it's like a two-dimensional plane. Eventually we will look at doing three-dimensional shapes like books, packaging, that sort of thing. But for now it's all just this single plane. But you get a great idea of how it would look with a bit of foil stamping on there and a particular brand color. Now if you wanted to match your own custom color, let's say for example we are printing this with 021 orange. 021 orange has an RGB color value of 255, 82 and 0. So we now have a Pantone orange, a Pantone 02 orange printing on there. Now do bear in mind that behind the back of these things we do have CMYK in our design, so that is actually our 021 orange. Now if we go into our substrates, our base material is on a gloss coated at the moment. Let's just say for example it's let's go to matte. It's like an uncoated with the zero gloss. And let's put the ink absorption back to 100%. What I want to do here is I'm turning off all the reflections, so let's put the paper back to white, so it's a standard flat white, no gloss, no ink absorption at all. What I want to do is I'm just going to use my color meter, and let's just let's go out of the max size so we can show you this. So if I take my color meter, obviously my color in here is 255 and 82, so this color here should be 255 and 82. So it does show you that you can take the RGB color value of your file, of like a spot color, and bring it into your design and set that up correctly. Now I did say that obviously if you are printing on a particular type of material, that will take on the appearance. So the white is no longer a pure white paper, so you're going to see some of that color contamination coming in, and there's also gloss reflections. Then you've got to take into account maybe there's some shading on your book, so I'm simulating this, so that's why the orange doesn't look like a completely bright vibrant orange. We've lost that 021 orange look because we've got shading in there, you know, that realistic shading from the design. So when you are looking at these, if you are trying to measure colors to make sure they are correct, please do bear in mind that anything you put underneath or on top of your color is going to change that color value. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at the other settings that we have in here. So we've got the orange. Maybe you want to see what it looks like with different colors. So the great thing about this is we can set up spot channels in Photoshop or spot colors in Illustrator or InDesign, and we can then just switch them on and off. So we can do it that way by name. In this case we'll do that one to the Ideal Alliance, so that's the color that Ideal Alliance says, and you can see that kind of green is more like a peppermint green, whereas if you compare it to somebody like, let's say, Mark Andy on a label press, theirs is slightly different tint. Now if it goes to someone else like SwissQ, theirs is more like an olive green. So everybody's machines has a slightly different coloured ink, or in some cases can be quite drastic. So it is important when you are visualizing to use the right ink. HP, for example, has an ECG ink, so that's dedicated expanded colour gamut ink. It's got a slightly blue tint to this one. But if you then go to their Vivid ink, it's a green. So different inks for different processes on different machines. We could look at the blue, same thing with the blue. How does that blue look on, let's see, well, Ideal Alliance doesn't specify a blue. They just have the violet, the orange, and the green. So in this case, let's just say let's have a look what Lambda looks like. So that's quite a dark blue, a really rich blue. If we look at somebody like Zycom, that's a clean, bright blue. So different machines, different colours. Now you could obviously, I could go through and show you all of these, but you get the idea. We can switch those on and off and see which colours work best. Now do bear in mind that you can also play around, so you could go into custom colour and you could just play around here and say, okay, let's just move it around. What colour looks nice? Does it look good in yellow, in green, in blue? Maybe I think, okay, I kind of like it in blue. Maybe I want it somewhere around here. So you can get a visual of how your design is going to look. And of course, if you do know those Pantone colors, if you have like an RGB color value, all you need to do is you can go onto Google and do a search for a color value. So say Pantone 1234 and ask for it in RGB, and it'll give you the RGB color value. Or you can take your spot color, like for example, if you're working with a brand, you can type that color in if you know the RGB value. The brand will often provide you with the hex color as well, in which case you can put in the hex color into the color picker. So really quick and easy way to be able to visualize expanded color gamut inks using the Visualis3R software.